We'll start with an easy one tonight. Tell us about who you are and why you're running for Scottsbluff City Council.
I'm Matt Salomon, and I'm a lifelong resident here from Scottsbluff. I attended high school here at Scottsbluff too. Went to college back east, and then after college decided to come back here just because I think the quality of life is good here. I think the city of Scottsbluff has a lot to offer when compared to other places you could live in western Nebraska. We've got some strengths. We have a paid fire department. We have a strong volunteer fire department. Our police department's a good core group. I've used them at the high school where I teach for speeches. When I first got out of college, I tried to give back to the city by writing grants. When you first get out, it used to be hard to get jobs teaching. So when I had no sub jobs, I would write grants for the Pathway project. And I did that for a while. I taught government for over 20 years, and I basically want to give back to the city some more. And since I don't have the financial resources to do a lot of philanthropy, I'd like to give back through my time and helping with the city council if the voters see fit. My kids are getting to that stage. They're about to either go into college or come back from college, and I want them to come back here. And so I kind of have a vested interest that Scottsbluff stays strong so they come back home.
Matt, what do you feel the biggest issue facing the city is, and how would you work to improve it?
I think one of the bigger issues that ebbs and flows with the economy is funding. The city, a lot of the funding, is driven by sales tax, and right now things are well, but I can see that ebbing and flowing. It's not constant, depending on the economy and how things are going locally. But I think, key to that would be the city manager position, having a good background in finances, especially in grants, both knowing how to get state aid, federal aid, and the correct paperwork and steps to proceed with that. I think the other solution too is partnerships. Working with Gearing and other cities on the landfill is a good option, and probably a more realistic one than Scottsbluff tackling that themselves. And maybe pushing forward with highway funding also to improve things such as Highway 26. I know there's a lot of wrecks every year. There's 700 in a year in Scottsbluff, but the worst ones, of course, are on Highway 26 because of speed, and maybe getting some federal funding for that. And then last would be just making sure we maintain funding to maintain the quality of life with all the services that we have here in Scottsbluff. So we maintain the families we have here, and we keep continuing to draw retirees off from the Front Range, which will help our economic situation.
Matt, as the city looks for a new city manager, what leadership qualities are imperative to set Scottsbluff up for success, not only tomorrow, but for years to come?
With the city manager, of course, we want someone that's well qualified, but also seek someone that has good people skills. And I guess for me personally, it would be someone I'd like to have as my own boss if they were a boss at where I work at. And there's qualities we've all seen, good and bad, with bosses we've had through employment. And I would ask the current department head leaders what they've seen good with all the city managers they've had in the past, and focus on those qualities when we do the hiring process. And with the city manager, I'd hope we'd get someone that has a commitment to the city, would be comfortable living here. It's not a Denver, it's not an Omaha, but I think there's a lot of potential here, and someone that's okay with working with the resources we have and creative enough to get projects done.
Matt, how does the city solve the issue of aging and failing water and wastewater infrastructure?
I think across the nation that's a problem a lot of cities are facing. It's kind of the refrigerator syndrome, where you don't see it until it's already a problem. So what you don't see, you don't realize is there. And I know, having worked with the water department with problems I've had in my old neighborhoods, a lot of those lines you don't detect until you lose water pressure. And I guess according to them, there's always a percentage that we're always losing. But I think you're going to have to lean heavily on your department head for the water department. They've got the expertise, and they can help kind of set up a schedule. I agree with kind of going with the age of the lines and working from the oldest to the newest and getting those lines replaced. And then a lot of that too is going to lean heavily on whoever the new city manager is, making sure that we can also get assistance for these repairs with state and federal aid, because these are going to be very costly repairs.
Thank you. Matt, what ideas do you have for improving availability and affordability of workforce housing in the area?
The housing situation, I've realized probably in the last 15 years, has gotten difficult around here. Now I'm lucky because I'm in a house right now, but the costs have exploded in the last year, and that's nationwide. So some of those solutions maybe go beyond the scope of what the city council can control. So some of it we're going to have to allow the market to correct. The prices went way up in the last year for a variety of reasons. Inflation rates are real high right now. There are steps maybe we could take with trying to find grants and those types of issues to get some housing constructed. But as was mentioned earlier, our biggest obstacle is all the construction materials have skyrocketed. So there really is no easy solution to this. I try and help park rangers find apartments when they come and work in the summer. I work out at the monument, and it's a horrible time finding affordable apartments. But probably the easiest and quickest solution would just be trying to find quick and affordable apartment complexes so that we can build. And then the housing, we'll have to work around that later, because that's probably the most expensive option right now.
Matt, if elected, what, if any, is the proper level of support for Riverside Discovery Center, and why?
We've utilized the zoo for my own family for years, so I have a lot of respect for it. I think Anthony Mason has done a knockout job getting the zoo turned around and back on track. I think it's a great resource for families who struggle with funds. I know when we were low on income per month at the end of the month, the zoo was a perfect thing with our family membership. We would always take our kids there. I think they're making a good effort at turning things around, improving the exhibits. They've added the bears and the new enclosure. They've added the new pumas, and they're going to improve more enclosures. And they've been really good about being creative about working in private donors and with their own money and some aid from the city. And so I think rather than reduce any money, I'd be in favor of actually restoring the $50,000 that they lost, in this last year, and keep them on the right track. Because for me, at least, it's a quality of life issue, offering that to families.
Matt, we'll move down to you. We'll move on to another project, and that's the proposed Aquatic Center. Obviously, it's going to be something that's decided on by the voters and ultimately not up to the city council. But do you feel the Aquatic Center is something that can be successful in our area? And if so, how?
I think it can be successful. I think it's another important quality of life addition to the city for all age groups. I know specifically the swim team has been desperate trying to find a home, because the splash arena, the amount of changes they'd have to do for renovations would be so costly. And so now I think they're just using the YMCA. But I think it goes beyond just the swim team. I think it's a good form of therapy for those who are older or need physical therapy. And just having another indoor facility for people to utilize during the winter is always a bonus, because I know in the winter a lot of people get cabin fever. And whenever we can have some option for families to get out and utilize an indoor facility, I'm all for it.
Matt, over the past 12 months, how many city council meetings have you attended, and what were your thoughts on how those meetings went?
I have not been to any meetings in the past 12 months. I follow real closely all the local news and the changes that are occurring. I think the council's been very resilient. I also have a lot of faith in them that with the city manager situation, they were privy to information. Obviously, we didn't have the whole output with what went on there, but I trust what they did, and they made the right decision based on the facts they were given. And if I get elected to the city council, I'm going to rely on them heavily to learn the process, and also just to try and maintain that quality the city council has always had, from Raymond Gonzalez to Randy Meinger to the current staff that we have.
Matt, if someone was preparing to move into Scottsbluff and knew nothing about the city, how would you describe it?
So every summer out at the monument, we get new park rangers that come from all over the country, and so I kind of help with orientation with what's here. And I kind of describe it as the best of both worlds. It's small, so as everyone's mentioned, we have some great things like no traffic issues. I can get anywhere in 15 minutes. It's peaceful. There's a sense of peace. Every time we've gone on vacation, we come back. We have a sense of peace coming back to Scottsbluff. No dread or anything. I think a lot of the people that have come here from bigger cities, that have worked here from the Park Service all over the nation, they comment on the same thing. They're impressed what we have here, both with the natural setting that we have with Wildcat Hills, the lake, Fort Robinson. You're just 3 hours away from the bigger cities if you want to attend those kinds of events. And we have a lot to offer here and a lot of potential with our schools. We've got a good core of teachers to build up the students that we have. And we have a higher education facilities here to have more growth through WNCC, the University Medical Center, and through Shadron. So I think there's a lot of potential here.
Matt, what are your thoughts on the City Creative District currently in the development phase?
This is a program I actually would need more input and guidance on. It's something I don't have a lot of knowledge on. From the sounds of it, just improving the overall look of businesses in the area, I would think that would be a great thing to continue. I think we've made a lot of headway in the downtown area of Scottsbluff, but advancing that to other areas of Scottsbluff would be a great idea to promote small business.
All right. At this time, we've reached time for closing arguments, or closing thoughts, I guess, arguments, whatever you want to call them. A closing statement, how about that, to give those that are watching tonight and the voters a last word on you. And Matt, 60 seconds for a closing statement.
I think after all these years of teaching government in the classroom, for me at least, it's exciting actually to experience the whole process. And I really value the community and have always tried to give back, and I'd like to get back or get on the council and help the city in any way possible through the city council. And I appreciate your vote.